Here's a free demonstration on how to animate a run cycle in Autodesk Maya. This is from the Animator's Journey Intermediate course. So if you're a beginner student, then I recommend watching the top 10 beginner exercises to do. I created a video about that so that you can start at the right place and not get overwhelmed and feel like a failure if you're trying something too advanced for your skill set. I think it's important to progress in a logical progression so that you find success along the way and you don't get overly frustrated and quit animation. So if you're just starting out, this is not for you. This is for people who have a little bit of experience. It's also worth noting that this demonstration comes at the end of a week of mini lessons in the Animator's Journey Intermediate course. You are missing out on a lot of the kind of nuance and deep dive information that it takes to really understand and absorb a demonstration like this. So if you want that kind of missing knowledge, I encourage you to enroll at animatorsjourney.com. You can also download the body mechanics rig I'm using in this demonstration. I think it's important to use a rig that does not have facial controls so the viewer doesn't get distracted and we can purely focus on doing body mechanics without throwing in overly complicated rigs that can be a distraction for someone viewing and critiquing things we don't want them to look at. We want to really get down to body mechanics before we get into acting shots and including faces in our animations. So that's why this rig doesn't have a face rig. The eyes do blink, so you could include that, but that's intentional here that we do not have a face on this rig, but you can get it for free at animatorsjourney.com. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in class or wherever your animation journey takes you. Welcome to this demonstration about how to perform a run cycle. So we're going to try to go through this as quickly as possible, and I've got this reference here on the side, which you have access to downloading as well, which I showed in the running lesson too. So just to give a general sense of what we're going to be doing, we are going to be starting with a 16 frame cycle. So that will give us an even numbers. So 16 means halfway is 8, means halfway there is 4. So it's a nice 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 kind of situation. So we can have deciding if we want to start with contacts or passing position. It doesn't really matter which pose you start on as long as obviously the sequence of them are in the same order. So you can start with contact, you can start with passing. Just take that with a grain of salt that you can always choose to, mix it up in that way. I tend to like to start with contacts, so we're going to start there. I have my picker open and my rig referenced in, as well as the environment that you have access to, and we can get going. So I'm going to select everything and set a keyframe on everything on the first frame, and just to make sure that everything is keyed. And then I'm going to start kind of working from the COG outwards. So we're going to start with a contact, which means it's going to be kind of forward and maybe up a bit. And we can get the feet in line as well. So these are going to be maybe not on the ground. Let me just turn shading on default material so I can see a little bit better. And I'm going to use the roll attributes here to make my life a little bit easier. But I'm still going to need to pull this up. And then of course, remember that we want the knee slightly bent here in a run to absorb that impact. And we can also give a bit of a twist here to favor that side, or looking at the other direction, favoring pushing off, whichever way you're kind of oriented looking at this. And then we can pull up the foot. Let me just go to my reference very quickly. So this is basically in the contact pose. We're already in a slightly bent orientation and the foot is well off the ground in the back. So we're going to pull this up, and I'm going to use, again, the roll just so I'm consistent on what I'm using. And we're going to pull this back and up. I think one thing I see sometimes is the knee, the angle of the foot here. Sometimes I see people keep the foot maybe too low and it doesn't feel like much like a run. Professional runners, if you see them running, they like almost kick their butts. They're like this kind of a thing. But, again, you have to take in context, like what kind of person we're animating and that kind of a thing. So we can have it slightly more down, and we can go through the IK hybrid chest here, and we can rotate this, get that into an orientation. And, depending on kind of runner that we have, we could do different things with the leaning. So I'm going to lean this forward and then go back into the chest and then pull everything slightly back a little bit. So we have this kind of arc going through the body here. And then we can pull the arms down and the clavicles. People tend to have their shoulders too stiff, too raised as they're running. So we could accentuate that, have this kind of bad form that most people have in our animation. So this person's maybe been running for a while, or it's a cycle, so maybe they're tensed up a little bit too much, and we can throw kind of some personality characteristics in there as well. Now when we rotate, let's go ahead and get the elbow up. Of course, we know we only want to rotate in this single axis for the elbow, and that means if we want to go across the body a bit more, depending on the kind of run that we're doing, we'll want to rotate from the shoulder, and because that's how our shoulders rotate, if you remember the anatomy lesson. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're using the rig in the way that the anatomy of a body works, so that when we're in betweening this stuff, things are in betweening in a way that we would expect them to. So I'm going to see what the rotation I did on this arm, let's just call it 60. So we can have it somewhere in that neighborhood. That looks like a lot more, huh? So actually that's not enough, I think. So let's get a more of an acute angle. If you remember from the running lesson, that it's more efficient to have your hands a bit tighter, so you're not throwing weight around that you don't need to be. And we can go ahead and get the fingers kind of locked in, and we won't have to really mess with those very much in this kind of a cycle that we're going for. So I'm just going to rotate everything in, and then we can fix the index finger here. We're going to have this kind of pushing out a little bit, kind of like a politician or something, how they this is how I hold my hands when I run. I don't know, everybody's slightly different, so I'm just going with what I do when I run. Somewhat relaxed, but also it's in a balled up kind of position. And we can maybe pull this down slightly more and then push this up slightly more to show a bit of tension there in the thumb. And bring this over a bit more and rotate it into the kind of little nook there of the hand. And then we can grab all of this stuff and mirror it over. I'm going to go ahead and get the wrist kind of tilted in here as well. I'm just going to select all of this and then go to the mirror tool here, the handy mirror tool that works 80% of the time. I mean, sometimes even like with Animate or other tools, so we're going right to left. If we look at, this is their right arm, so right to left. I'm going to go over, it should be over Z, and control selected, and then we're going to go there. And so now we've mirrored over the hands. Most mirror tools have some issues with them from time to time, so that's not uncommon. So we're also going to get this. Remember, we're working in 3 axes, so for the clavicle, we're not probably going to be doing much of this axis, but it's good to just keep that in mind when we're running. Maybe tuck this in a bit more, and maybe this one was too much. And of course, again, we can go in and adjust this stuff as needed. I may want more tilt here. It's a bit too upright. So I'm just going to kind of look at this pose, maybe see if I can't get this pinky to kind of, the mitt kind of situation is always interesting. I kind of want it to go in a bit more. Anyway, it's fine. We can go on and finesse that later. It's just felt, what I'd like, all right, I'm gonna this is when demos start to take too long. I want this kind of a V shape here. You know, it's kind of natural how, if you look at my fist here, you can see a kind of a V shape that going down. So I kind of want to accentuate that in the pose there as well. So maybe to do that a touch more here. I think it's fine. Okay. I want to make sure I'm not noodling something to death and we are wasting too much time. I think his foot is slightly too far off the ground. So I'm just going to grab all three and then make sure I'm in world so they all move together. And then maybe move these. Whoops, don't have that one. Move all of these down slightly. So there's the ground. So let's go slightly above the ground. All right. I think we have the first one. I think maybe this arm is a bit too far out in front. I don't know. We can play with that. And let's turn the head to world. So again, that we're not having to counter animate the head too much. All right. So I think we have the first pose. Then we can basically grab all and then make sure that on 16, we have all the same stuff. And then that means on 18, we can set a key, but then we want to swap everything. And if remembering from the walk demonstration, it wants to do it on the X for some reason, but then it also doesn't mirror everything correctly. We can see there's an issue there with the legs. What in the world just happened with the legs? So it's again, it's the group that whatever's happening. Sorry, on these, it's doing something crazy. Okay, no, it's not. Where is that? Maybe these are moving. Why would those be moving so crazily? And becoming offset is pretty bizarre. I don't know if it's this. If we zero these out, no. Let's go up one more. Yeah, it's weird. Let's try the other axis and then we can see if this isn't going to work or not. We could just do this stuff manually, but I like to try to, yeah. Sometimes it's fun to see like what's going to happen if I do this. Okay. Let's try just a different setting here to see if that, for whatever reason, that worked. Okay. Instead of root X using world. Sometimes you have to play around with these tools to get them to do your bidding. Okay. Similarly, I want to the walk, I want to get some tilt here. So let's get that. And then we can do it on this one as well for the forward and back. So I'm just going to go this way. So there's a bit of tilt there. And the middle mouse, save that to the other side. All right, so we're cycling that. I can also grab everything and turn on pre and post infinity cycle. Before I do that, let me go ahead and save my first version. So we basically have kind of the contact poses in, even though he's technically not contacting the ground, but kind of these extreme poses. And what were we doing? We're going to turn on pre and post infinity so we can start to see that issue. Let me just select all again and make sure I have everything. Yeah, so everything looks to be doing that. So then when we're going through and seeing the tangents that we can get that sorted out. So now we can work on what's going to be the breakdown. So again, we can kind of focus on one stride and then mirror that over. So it's really only like 8 frames that we're working on here. So we can get this on the ground, kind of work from the ground up, because the things that we know for sure, sometimes that's easier to work with than what we don't maybe know, or we're trying to find on the fly a little bit. So we have that, and for some reason that is rotated. It's not that one. Why is that? So, oh, I think I might have hit 0 on the wrong thing. Roll. Oh, so it did mess with the offset maybe when we mirrored this over. No? Why is that? See? What is going on here? this mirror tool is probably causing more problems than it's helping. What is that? Rotate X and 50 extra. That doesn't seem right. I think this is it. And let's go here, go up. Yeah, see what is going on here? Goofy. Okay, so we've got that. This is overextended, so that's why it's slightly, the foot is slightly bent. So this is the passing. So we're going to be going down. And remember, the kind of rule of thumb is we want to only be going like a half a head height, so we could jump into an orthographic view and then toggle between and kind of see, okay, head height wise, it's, if we turn on a grid maybe, so the head is maybe two and a half grid lengths, and we're there. So we're going up by like a little more than half, which would be, you know, on the small side of how much up and down we have. But I think that's okay. Even just looking at this, I'm okay with that. The other thing I want to do is pull this back, so we get a little bit of back and forth as well. And this is, by now, we may want some toe roll started with the foot that far back. The other thing we need to check on how far the foot is back is turning this to linear on these two. So let's just hit linear here and see where that lands us on frame 4. And at this point in my stride in the reference, my heel is just barely coming up. So I'm going to crank that up. And I'm also looking at like this angle from the shin to the foot. So we're going to have that slightly up. And we can also, let's see, what else do we want to do? We'll want to get this other foot sorted out. So it's coming through. And because we mirrored it, this is going to have the same issues over here. So let's go clean that up. I'm selecting these and I'm going up. I'm just seeing where that wonkiness happened on the mirror tool. Selecting one, pressing up. Oh, I'm hitting delete, which isn't a good option. So I was getting that error message and going up and then going up. Okay. So that is good. And then this roll is wonky. This is the tilt, so that shouldn't be it. If we go up one, let's just go inspect these again. Make sure I didn't miss something. Okay, why is that not rolled the other way? I guess we haven't, I guess it just didn't mirror the right value. I guess neither of these did. When we deleted those, that was mirroring. That's weird. Yeah, it was mirroring. It's trying to compensate or something. So anyway, we can see that this is -30. So we can just do this kind of manually and have this be -30 here. And then do the same thing. I think it was like 104.5. So we go 104.5. So when in doubt, just do it manually. If you have any concern about a tool not working correctly. So what I'm looking at this reference, and I kind of want to see what this in between, let me just say always on top. This is the playback, edit, always on top. This is a nice, you have to pay for this player, but it's from Zerbrig is the guy's name. Keyframe Pro is the name of the software. So what I'm looking at is kind of the attitude. This is basically the frame we're on here. And I just want to see what what the foot is doing here now that we got the roll figured out. So we need to adjust for some of this and maybe bring it up more and continue that roll here through the, let's maybe pull this back even more through the passing position. I'll get it out here in a second. So, I mean, already just with a couple poses, you can see we have something here. And I feel like so part of what we're fighting here on this roll is the fact that the foot is kind of like coming forward as the controller is going backwards. So that's why from like 4 to 8 we have this kind of weird, the knee bend is weird because the foot is getting rolled up as it's fighting that coming back. So they're kind of going in opposing directions. So we'll have to compensate for that in this in between on frame 6 basically. So it's just something to keep out, on the lookout for. Okay. So maybe we can go ahead and add in some drag here, and we can drag the clavicles up because that is the fact we're going down through here. And we can maybe favor this one. Oh, what am I on? Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I thought I was on the clavicle here. We can get this and Z to be favoring that side. I always look for ways to favor and kind of offset stuff on the keys, because it's kind of like if you can't even do it on the kind of mile marker keys that we have, then it's going to be even more difficult when we're not. So I've got this, and then I may want to tuck the pelvis here a little bit. I feel like this is coming back too far. That's one thing I'm a little worried about. Cool. So let's take 4 and let's make sure we're doing a little bit more overlapping here. Let's maybe tuck this elbow, bring this up, maybe drag the wrist a bit more, just a touch, just to loosen everything up. Same thing on this side. So we're going forward, right? Sometimes I have to remind myself what I'm actually even doing. So we want to drag this one. Maybe keep this tucked against the body a bit more here. And then have this drag outward. So it's kind of dragging through and then coming across. And then it can come up. Just double check the amount here that we're dragging by. Yeah, that's something, Now let's grab all, and then we can swap and maybe not include the feet here in this mirror because of how troublesome that was. And look at that tilt here. We got something wonky. Before I move forward, what is that tilt all about? it's that this was, we may need like a toe, a swivel. That's the pole vector. I guess this doesn't have a toe, whatchamacallit, but this is kind of wonky how the heel is kicked out so far. And I think it's due to the angle. Here we go, rock. So maybe what I'm looking for. Because the ankles would come a bit closer. Maybe even in this passing position, we can come a bit closer here even on that. I'm just kind of inspecting it from all angles here. Maybe you get that rock incorporated a lot earlier here. So let's go ahead and get that rock in there. And then anytime we do 0, we want it over here. So I'm just going to hit S again. And then for 8, I want to make sure I'm doing the same thing. So we're going to use rock. So that way I'm not, later on like, what did I do? I can't really remember. We know for sure which attributes we use to do what. Okay. So we only have half of the cycle here now that we've gotten the timeline back out. I kind of want to raise this up. And I don't want to noodle this to death too much, but let's raise this up. Go here, raise this up. And then we can middle mouse that one in. Okay, now let's grab all, and then let's mirror this over. So I'm just middle mouse dragging 4 to 12, and then I want to deselect, I guess really all of the feet. We don't want to just grab only the IKs because those weren't really the issue actually. We could probably even include those. Let's just see what happens and then mirror that over, or sorry, swap it over really, and then see how we did here. Turn off the NURBS curves. So we're not too far off. I don't like how obtuse the forearms are. So I'm going to go ahead and bring those back and maybe even see if we can't take the whole thing and just bring them all up, and then the lowest point maybe down a bit more. And then I think maybe it's these both need to stay back more as well. So on Z, let's go to Z, control clicking there. Now we can grab these, pull them back maybe. So it doesn't look like we're kind of boxing and running at the same time. All right. I want more lean, which I was thinking at the beginning I wanted. So I think I'm right there. And then maybe even just grab this one, rotate Z, rotate Z. Just move this whole thing up. And then I can just kind of go through and make sure things have mirrored over correctly. So we have rotate Y happening. So we have that one forward. We can see that's going correctly. We can also check translations, especially I'm gonna hit 3 and then A. The pre and post infinity here. And then we can kind of just go for it, I think, at this point. Let me take this down to 15 so we can see a clean cycle. Yeah, it's mainly just, I think, cleaning up the feet and getting more overlap in the spine, which we didn't really work on in these contact positions. And if you watch my reference, I'm not really going side to side very much, but we didn't do any. So let's just get a little bit on translate X. So I'm just going to go through and make sure on these I have keys, because you can see on 4 I didn't have one for X. So I may also bring over the feet rather over under him more. So I'm going to take translate X and just grab everything and pull it in. I'm going to hit undo and then go to 1 just because I want to see the absolute values that I'm using. And I guess I could really do these both at the same time because they're going to be, I think they're similar, or they're mirrored, I think. Because if I pull them both in the same direction, yeah, they don't go both towards the center. So I have to do these separate, which is okay. I can just kind of keep track of like, this is at 0. So how far down? I could go to like, maybe the 0.6 or something. And then just kind of eyeball that in the other direction. 0.6. Whoops, I want to grab all of these. 0.6, which will be this one. Yeah, and then we really need these breakdowns more than anything to get this working. And then I want to really accentuate a bit more. Let's see what we can get away with on X first here. So we're gonna go I'm very upright. The one thing we didn't do in this passing, now that I'm remembering, is on these poses, we didn't drive this hip up, which I'd like to do. So we're going to go here. I'm looking at like -10, or sorry, what Z would be, say 7. So we're just going to go and eyeball this to the other side as well. 7-ish. Okay, and then we can do a similar thing on this to get a bit more squash on each side and overlap and that stuff. And then same thing here. So on Z, I remember I did do this, right? Yeah, so I just would see one of those. I kind of just want to go really far and just see what it does. Sometimes I like to do this just to see if you can have like happy accidents or do something kind of like stylized. Obviously this is super wonky, but just to show you, like, you don't have to be so strict with this stuff. Like, have fun with it, like I have to like teach, like go like kind of by the book stuff, but at the same time, like as you're messing around, you're gonna learn more the more you play, right? And like this is backed up by research. Like kids learn better after recess, kind of a thing. So don't get too caught up in like being really strict with yourself on this stuff, because you may miss out on some learning opportunities. So let's get these tangents working just while I have these selected. Copy this and then paste it over here. And then we just go the other way. Here, copy, paste. I think we could dial back how much rotate Y we have. I guess it's X on these. And we can favor a side because it's like, you can see this is like almost straight linear here. So we want the chest to basically lead. Let me hit 3 and then A. I'm just going to delete that. And then which way are we going? So this will lead a bit. And then same on the other side. I guess we could just, sorry, we can't. I was going to say, because this is a twist thing, we can't favor that. Let me go to 1 so I can see the absolute values here, because it's getting a little wonky seeing it that way. Twist that a bit. And then let me grab the one that's most obvious here. I guess they're both together. But I can look at this goes over to like -2 so that we still have a ways to go here on this. 2. And then these are totally lined up. I think it's this one. Sorry, this one. Yeah. Because that's the one that's moving the most. And then we can click drag this -5.7 so we can kind of make sure we're not going too far off asymmetrical. So now we have a bit more of a favoritism on either side. And we have the hips going up here, right? We have the Z working. Just want to make sure that's going through the animation. So I'm going to copy, paste, and we can go through each one of these axes and see if there's kind of wonky stuff going on either one. Maybe we want to favor each side. This is the oh no, this is the twist. So maybe those are leading. The hips are in charge a bit more. What was it? X is going kind of tucking in. Maybe we can get that on another breakdown. So one thing we were looking at, and I think I stopped doing, was the rotate X here. And that's what I was playing with earlier, basically, I think. Okay. Now let's start to really break this down a bit. So I'm going to go to 2. And we know the feet are not where they need to be. So we can start to get all that stuff down more clearly. And this is where it's going to really help. And even, you know, we could move this. This needs to be on the ground, really. Oops. I'm taking that back off because I don't like how the knee was going wonky there. So I'm just going to hand animate that through. Okay. We can maybe delay the hip on this. Did we favor? I don't think we favored yet on Z. So we could even delay this a touch and have it because the foot really hasn't touched the ground yet. So we could keep this down here. And copy and paste this over here. Have it get really driven up on the landing part so that we're connecting the dots on kind of how this goes. And we can look back in our reference and make sure, you know, this kind of makes sense. With that pose. And then we can look at the other leg here. We could also start maybe this one down more on this one so we have more way to go up, or we could actually go up on this one with this one. Let's see what that does to get the arc through there. And then we'll want to drag the foot a bit more, I think. So maybe increase the roll as well. So we can kind of see that arc coming through there. Push this up a touch. And we can go ahead and see where we have issues here. Go to this frame and just see what that's on. So copy, paste. See if there's anything else like this roll. I think that's the roll. And then, yeah, we can go through 6 as well. But okay, let's just keep going through the body here. So we have this is coming down and back. We can maybe delay translate Z a touch. So again, thinking about how do we want to favor this? Maybe this is slightly favoring the front, and then it goes back and then pushes off really hard there. And also on translate Y. So maybe we come down a bit harder after the landing. So it's a bit more obvious. And then we'll want to, I keep getting ahead of myself. Let's just stay on this, but I want to make sure on 6 we bring it Y down so it looks like we're fighting against gravity, right? And then we can take a look at some of these. So maybe build in some overlap that we didn't have from before. So slightly pull this back and give the clavicles a chance to overlap a bit more. So they're really leading the pack here. And let's check the chest on X. You can see there's an issue here. So copy paste. Again, as you go through, you can kind of inspect this stuff. You can see there's an issue here where like this side these are split, but this side isn't. So the quickest thing to do would be like, let me see if I can select. So I'm doing a single click here just to get these separated. And then I can grab this one, whoops, by itself, top one. And then just see how much, I mean, that does affect it quite a bit. I think, yeah, let's just go ahead and keep them together. But you can kind of see that catch that asymmetry just even by visually looking at the graph editor. So for this side, maybe what we want to do is have this be the furthest up position and lower, or a further up position and lower these more. So we have kind of a bigger change here as it's coming back. Maybe, I don't know. That's kind of a guess right now. Trying to just create some interesting overlap there. And of course, that's going to be on this side too. So we're going to mirror that over, or swap it over, I guess, rather. All right. So for this elbow, let's also look, I've been looking a lot in profile, so I also want to look, straight on here. And I think it's this twist, we want to favor X out a little bit more. So I'm gonna hit S and then, oh, wrong one. Let me go to gimbal here and see, see, that's the issue, we're in gimbal. So because of that, I'm going to rotate this out by hand. And we're not going to be, just remember, we're not going to be able to really see this in the graph editor correctly because it's going to be going through. We could also adjust the rotation order, or I think these have an extra controller further up. So just by hitting up, I could, move the axes of what's moving what. So in gimbal, so just as an example, if I go to gimbal, on the extra controller, I could move this around, right? Get in gimbal, but if I go to the actual controller, it's going to look different. This is in gimbal for a different reason. But that's something to usually check before we get started, but I'm not too concerned about it because we're going to have a key almost on every frame anyways. I don't want the extra shoulder control. I want the actual one. And so, but just in a bind, maybe check that extra controller out if you need it. But for this situation, I'm just manually doing this stuff. And then I can go in, when I'm cleaning up arcs, I can fix this stuff up. You can see how it's popping here. And that is because of the gimbal issue. So that's more of a polished thing. I'm just going to remember. And I think eventually I'm going to probably pull all the elbow stuff back, or the forearm stuff back. But okay, let's just keep moving forward here. Let's grab 2, and I'm going to deselect all the feet again because of how wonky that's been. And then, so 2 would mean 10 over here. So middle mouse S, and then we're going to flip it over and world here. All right, and then we can go through the feet and double check the feet are doing what I'm expecting. And I think it actually, I didn't deselect them. I think it actually worked maybe. Yeah. So through here, one thing I might start adding, kind of a polishy thing, is tucking this toe a little bit, dragging that. And then that would mean on 10, we're doing it on this one as well. The only other thing, right, is when I talked about this a little bit at the beginning, is how in this kind of passing position, right, we haven't gone through this breakdown yet. That's kind of the next step. So let's go to 6 and fix all this stuff, where because of the foot roll and the controller moving back, they're kind of fighting each other. And so we can keep that going. Let me just go to where this is in the stride here and have this be the kind of furthest point here. Let me just go to 0 and see if that does much for us. And then we can also maybe dial back the roll so we get a kind of straight leg pushing off. And we may need to adjust the rock here, because I don't think we've been zeroing that out. So we may need to go back and make sure that's zeroed out. So that's fine. Yeah, it was just blending through. So that was good. We caught that. So that's working. From the front view, we probably have some intersections here on the feet going through each other. We can double check that. Yeah, right here. So we could use rock. We could push that back. There's a couple different ways we could do it. So we could maybe push this one over since we're dealing with that one there, and that basically gets through it. We could also use the rock a little bit here and zero that out, and that could have a major, yeah, so that's helping. It's going through. I think that might be good. Yeah. Okay, so starting to get that cleaned up. And then we need to just clean up the bottom foot as well. So you can see kind of compared to our reference, our foot is too high. This is already looking like it's weighted. So we know that's wrong. So we can bring this down, and then we can maybe bring back the roll. So the foot is a bit flatter. And if we need to, maybe keep this drag going here. So we got a wonky thing happening here that we'll need to fix on ones, meaning a keyframe on every frame. But through here, I think it's working pretty good. May need to adjust stuff on a frame by frame basis now. Yeah, we can see because of the roll, just like tracking the heel, it goes up and then back and then kind of up and back here where we want this to keep going. And this is maybe too much. Oh, and because that's because we don't have probably a translate Z keyframe on 6. So we can hit that, and then that way it's holding 6 in place. And just double check that that is linear here. And then we have a better arc on that foot. And then we'll notice the knee has kind of been fixed by fixing that one frame. The timing of the arms bother me. If we just take a look at our reference here, there's a lot more swing across the body that I have than what we have in our animation. And they're a lot tighter. You can see how the distance from my hand to my chest is versus our animation. Look how far out in front it's getting. And part of that is because of that, us lacking that twist. So, you know, going back and forth with the reference, you can catch stuff like this and work it back into your animation. And again, this may cause a problem because of the gimbal lock. So what we could do is do this on a layer or do it on the extra control. So for me, I'm going to do it on the extra control. But it's something that you'll definitely want to remember that you're doing. So if I go to gimbal here, you can see how much cleaner this is. And we can kind of basically work on animation layers, but within the rig. So then I'm going to middle mouse drag that to 16 so that loops. And then on 4, we can zero this out. And do the same thing on 8 here. I'm going to press up on the keyboard to get to the extra control here, and then kind of get this a bit tighter. All right. And I can just drag one of these keyframes over. You can see this kind of jitter stuff we can fix in Pollet and then a polish pass. I can even maybe keep this turned out here. Yeah, and so part of this issue for me is again this stuff. 12. Yeah, so this is, I think for me, this is the biggest wonkiness of the run right now. Yeah. So I like that extra little dip here, and then dip and then back up on, dip down and then back up here. So it catches up kind of to the whole body moving up. So let's work that into this one here. It's on the way back. So let me select that again. So 12 would be halfway on this other side from 8, right? So that would be 4. On 4, we want to see this type of animation on this control. So that would be here, right? And then we're missing that on 6, I guess, which would be, is that right? Let me just select both of these. Oh no, that's working. We just have a different tangent handle here where this one is flat and this one would be up. So now we've kind of mirrored that over to the other side. A bit more of a natural kind of rhythm and having that bit of noise there. And that I just need to pull this down so we're not seeing that. Again, I think that this one is too far out in front. Of his body. I don't think I fixed this on these. Let me just delete these and see what it does. Yeah, so you can see how far this out is. I think that's part of the issue. We want this inward more. And maybe for the whole animation, right? Except for maybe here where, and we got this little noise thing that we can fix. But we want to do this to the other side too, where I think at the beginning, I think this is maybe too far across. Pull this down. Middle mouse drag this, and then it's this one. Start to curl this in a bit. And maybe pull this back to 8 so it has more of a blend. And we'll have to clean this in like a polish pass. You can kind of see we're coming across our body a bit better there. It looks a bit more natural. The other thing we can do is, I don't think we have enough overlap in the clavicles, especially on the downward arm. So you could kind of get some asymmetry in these. So have this be up more. To be fair, this is kind of like a more layered approach where we kind of got the base in, and then we're adjusting as needed here. And then this will go back up. It may need to be that I'm going to already start kind of doing a polishy thing here and offsetting these things. What I'm looking at right here, I know there's noise in the arm that I'm going to clean up. I'm just making sure we're getting some flexion here, where you can see on the other side it's pretty stiff, but here you can start to see there is a bit of flexibility there. And what the reason why I'm doing it at the time I'm doing it is based on the motion here. It's dictated by, it's going to drag up as the body's coming down. This should drag up. And it will give us further to go when it does hit the ground, when our feet do hit the ground, and then we can go down a lot more here. So on 14, we're really going down here. And then we grab both of these, pull them up as well. And I can grab the other one to compare kind of the amount. You can see how much further we went on these. And on, this is going to be a bit wonky since, on this one I went rogue. On 8 is the frame we should be matching to for 16. So what I can do is effectively just copy paste this in here and set a key on 8. So I'm going to hold down I, middle mouse drag, click, copy, or really cut that out. And then we can, we can paste that here on Y and do the same over here. So now we have that, even though there's not a keyframe on 8, we're kind of accounting for that, the cycle being off on a different frame there. Same thing we do in other axes, right? We've only done it in Y. So what about these other ones? We could, split these up a bit. So Z is really dragging more here. And maybe we pull this back so we have more room to drag. So now we're really dragging. And then we come through. On 6 here. I hit a auto tangent on this one. So that's the idea, right? It will need more polish, but that's basically thinking about in multiple axes, right? Let's drag this one forward here. So we're dragging, and then that comes back. And that'll maybe drag. I know I was leading with it at the beginning, but I almost feel like it looks better with a slight bit of drag, and then it can catch up. Went a bit more linear here, and then it really catches up through here. And that affects our arms a little bit, and there's some jitterness there. But that's really just like a polish arc pass. And same thing with the feet, we can look at the arcs through here, clean up the arcs, clean this up. Especially, so this one would be 6 on this side, wouldn't it? So we haven't mirrored over 14, right? So, which would be 6. And I guess we haven't really done 16. I mean, sorry, 6. So we got 6. On 14. So yeah, we just haven't done the feet. We can take our chances here and middle mouse drag these to 14 and try to use the swap tool. Oh, it was for all, not for selected. That's why it worked last time, right? And so that's why it's not working here. Super wonky. Super wonky. So I'm going to delete this, and then I'll just fix this manually, right? So, and if I need to refer back to something, I just go to 16, and And I could see, I could even do this like in the right hand view or something like that. Jump to 14 and I can see where the issue is on this one. Right, this basically needs to be on the ground. And then if I jump back to 6, I can see this is 49, excuse me, 49, no rock. So we can go no rock, 49. And what else is wrong with that then? It's way too far back, right? So we have that here. I could grab something like this, the field chart, and I could put basically like where the manipulator is, kind of the crosshairs here. Go to 14, and then you can see how far back that is. Then we can drag it into the same spot. All right, we can see the knee kind of coming into shape where we would expect it to be. Then we do the same thing for the other foot. So that is at whatever height. We could use the field chart. Same thing, get it in the right spot. So use the field chart guide, match that, and then we can look at the other attributes that are in the foot, like roll is 20, no rock, and then, yeah, we're not far off. 20, no rock, and I think we have some of this, and if we don't, we should. And because you can see, I think this is artificially keeping that down. We want to delete that one because we do want that through there. So yeah, because you can see we have it through here. All right. And we could do more flourishes, like, you know, really throw it up on this frame or something. Like you can go and go frame by frame and really do polish stuff, you know. Again, these cycles, we're not super focusing on like a high level of polish just yet. I don't want to get over, you know, miss the forest for the trees kind of a thing. Because if we can't get this stuff, there's no sense in doing like polish level stuff. Now, I'm curious why this foot is going through the floor. So I'm going to check these other attributes. Rock is okay, or sorry, roll. Where's rock? This is at 0. So it's telling me something else. This rotates Z, so we need that down. So now we got that flat. And then we want to make sure the same thing happened on the other side, because you can see the foot going through the floor here. So this needs to be at 0 at this point. All right. Just stuff like that. You need to, you know, double check our work. Make sure that that kind of bare minimum kind of stuff is in. Bring this back down. And then we get to add overlap into, oh, we have a super wonky knee thing happening. So let's just double check what's happening there. Oh, because remember on the other leg, we had to have this one frame fix here. So 15 would be 7 on this side. So we could grab the field chart, lock that crosshairs in, go to 15, and we can see where that is off. And then I think we had a roll, we messed with the roll a little bit. I guess maybe not, because it's not touched there. So let me just double check these other things that weren't touched. But regardless, we can, you know, adjust the stuff per leg if we want to, right? So watching the arc here, I'm not liking that push off. So 15 and 7. I think that maybe the leg could be a bit straighter through there. And really what we need to do is take a rivet and check the arcs here. I'm going to leave that for you to do. We're coming close to the end here. We're about at about an hour. You know, we have a decent run cycle. We need some just overlap in the head, I think, here. And then we can probably call this a day on, you know, a decent run. So I'm just going to kind of straight ahead this stuff. And so from here to here, that makes sense. And then we can just basically loop that back on itself. So copy paste that in, and then we can fix this issue here. And then auto tangent, and then get this working. Auto tangent, and just see if this is, yeah. And then we'll always want to look from other angles, because a lot of this profile stuff, you can see this is going to be where the most polish is going to be needed in these arms that are a bit jacked up. Maybe they're moving a bit much, and the head's moving too much. So all we have to do now, that if we have a timing that we like, again, we may, okay, one last thing here is I talked about earlier, but I never did. Or I guess I did, but it's not even. You can see this isn't mirrored over. Am I on rotate Z? I want translate Z. Oh, it's just like a tiny, tiny amount. Because I'm looking at these numbers over here, you can see almost behind my head there. Excuse me, we can move these over. I'm just going to delete all of these keys because I'm crazy like that. And copy paste. And we have this kind of coming through, and then so 2 would be 10 over here. So we can basically copy paste these, and then we can scale them in -1. So edit, I'm behind my head, I'm just going to edit the scale options box, and then I'm going to reset the settings, and then just say -1, and hit apply, and then we can get the tangents working, and that will be loopable. Yeah, so that's a lot better. We get this side, I get a bit of side to side, because I was seeing that we were kind of a bit off, a bit too off. Just get a little hop. Okay, what else? What were we doing? We're trying to check, oh, dial down the head is too much. And just double check that we have the right timing that we want. Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's just too much. Let me turn off the default shader so we can start to see this the way we would finish this up. We could also have some tilt. Of course, we're only doing overlap in one axis right now. So the way to take this further is, again, think about all the axes that we would be adjusting. And then also, let's look at this is maybe coming back too quick. Let's maybe move this over one frame and give it another frame to soften, and then auto tangent these to kind of flatten that out. So it kind of mirrors 2 and 2 over here, these two keys. And then we can just, I'm just gonna hit R and then middle mouse drag scale from my mouse cursor being on 0. And especially because we added the side to side motion in, as well as the hips and the spine here, you would want to work in a bit of, in this case, rotate Y. I mean, we could go ahead and do that. I probably would want to do it from the neck first. So maybe here, kind of just eyeballing this. And then I'm just going to delete all this. And then say copy paste and go to Y. Get this working. Auto tangent. Right? So it's, you know, not perfect, but this is the idea, right? We're going through each kind of thing. Oh, the wrong way. I want this back over here. And actually, I think it's only these two, and then I'll do the other one that way. So I want to go harder. We land here, and then it should go screen right, kind of harder. Yeah, which it is, okay. And then it should stay over here, so that's this one. So Now I've just gotten myself a bit confused here. So we're on, because I'm going, oh, sorry, yeah, 3. Oh, sorry, 2. I want this on 2. And then that means on 10, I want this one. I think everything's just, the timing of this is off a bit. So, yeah, sorry, the timing of this is off a bit. So, because 8 should match these. So, yeah, this is my 2 a.m. brain getting a bit confused here. So this, yeah, that goes that way. I'm trying to drag back this way. Let me double check the value. 3 and 3-ish. Yeah, so we're in the neighborhood. Let's just get this up here. And then what is going on with this? Sorry, 6. Oh, sorry, this is where I'm getting confused. 16. It should be this 3. That is -3. This is not it. Yeah, so let's go here. And then this. So I think these need to come back, basically, is what the conclusion I'm getting at. Is, and I realize I've stopped talking a little bit as I'm figuring this out. Oh, no. We do want it to drag. Auto tangent. Anyway, that's in the neighborhood. It's a bit soft. It's a bit maybe softer than it should be. And then we can go through the head and do a rotate Y pass. So hopefully a bit more clean and obvious than what I was just doing and confusing myself. So we're going this way, so we're going to drag there, and then it's going to come through on 8. And through here, and then that means if this is on 1.4, these should be on positive 1.4, and this should keep dragging, right? 2 after that. Delete this for now. 4, and that is the equivalent of 12 on this side. Sorry, this is over here. And this is 2.1, so this should be -2.1. So we're starting to get closer, and luckily I was a bit more clear-headed about this one than the neck. So you can see it's very subtle. It's not like we're doing a ton of crazy stuff here. Just crank that down. But it just loosens things up just a touch. Right? Hopefully you can see a difference than 10 minutes ago than what we were doing. But that's basically a run in roughly an hour. The arms, there's the glitches in the arms because we have the gimbal in the shoulders. And the 2 ways you can go about addressing that is just keyframing it on every frame based on, motion trails of tracking the arcs. So we go frame by frame and check this. You can see this hitch right here. So as I go, you can see how that hitches. And while in gimbal, you can see I have no way to rotate that, but that's okay. We can go to object and just make this work. the way we want, right? And get that arc working. Maybe we don't want that to be so far back. But we can go through here and just frame by frame brute force this thing to be exactly the kinds of arcs that we want to have in our animation. And we want to make sure too that, you know, what we're correcting for, especially if we're looking at a motion trail down here, that it's also not, you know, something somewhere else like the forearm. So the major motions of X are going to be dictating this kind of side to side stuff. So that makes sense. That's going out, and then that's coming across the body, going back out. So we may want to drag this a bit more. It's kind of coming across a bit aggressively here. And you can see how this frame moved with it. So we'll have, that tells me there wasn't a keyframe there. So we can get that back in. And then also same thing, like maybe this is going too far across the chest here. So we can bring this back. But again, the point being that you can, even if you have a gimbal issue, you can kind of brute force this stuff and solve this. If you have kind of visual aids like a motion trail, you know, you could track it with the blue pencil, Epic Pen on your screen, any of those. So let's just do this side super quick. Show a similar kind of workflow here and solve for these little hitches here. So we want to drag more out. So now we're getting an arc around this way and maybe back and out a bit more. Okay. When you have not a ton of frames, you have to kind of really be careful about these arcs so that they're not going too wild. Maybe drag that a touch more here. Whoops, maybe a bit too much. Come on. Same thing here. Right? So anyway, that's just, it shows you kind of like how I would go about it, reevaluate. You know, I was doing that without even really watching what the effect was. But we got rid of that little hitch, right, on the right side that we had at least. You could check for the symmetry. You could check to, you know, see what other kind of wonky things could be happening. But, you know, that's a pretty decent 1 hour run cycle. I think the one thing I'm looking at now, every time you do a pass, you're going to find new things that you want to be addressing. But the one thing I'm noticing now are maybe some pops in the knees, like there. So this is the one, let me just focus on this before we finish up. That part of the spacing that we talked about in the lesson is tracking the knee spacing through the passing position. And so that's one thing I would probably emphasize here is see how the knee is locking here. We would want to focus on that and have the knee spacing really drive through. See how it drives through between here and here. So we kind of speed up. If I'm tracking, be it there, I'm using my mouse, big move, and then it gets stuck. So, and then it moves again. So there's stuff like that where you want to go in and fix. But see, if I move that, there's no keyframe on either side of this to keep things locked in to where we had them before and after. So I can go in and set a keyframe on either side of that. So now I know if I go in and fix 6, you know, 5 and 7 are going to be where they were before I started that. So I'm probably going to maybe move this one back a touch. So this has more room to go forward there. Push that even more forward. So that's the kind of thing you want to be doing with checking your spacings. And the same thing, obviously, because we have symmetry, the same thing is happening on this other side. So I'm just going to go through, hit a key on these. So when I adjust the one in question, which is here, and move this forward, it's not going to affect the others as much. Or sorry, I had the wrong one. I think it was this one. It should be there, and this one should be up. So let me move a little bit so that we're not getting a little flash of the knee, of the other knee coming through. So that's the big move, right? So here's the big move. I'm holding my mouse just to get rough spacing. And I can see that this spacing is tighter than the next spacing. And I don't want that like big move, small, big again, right? It should be ease ins and ease outs. So if I unreference this, I could also select the knee and I could turn on ghosting. So you go visualize. Let me just save this before I do that. Again, anytime I'm doing something big like that, or using a tool that I haven't been using much, I want to always save. Open ghosting editor, create ghost from selected, and let me make sure all that stuff is visualized, because normally I would expect to see it by now. For whatever reason, we can't see it. Unghost all, never mind. It could be a 2022 thing. I've been using ghosting successfully in 23. Otherwise, we could use blue pencil or whatever here. But long story short, I was trying to get you to see it, what I'm seeing. So we can use the grid here. So we can see we have a 2 grid move. You know, we're on this line right here, basically number 2, and then we go all the way to basically 0 here. And then we go a half, and then we go a half again. So I don't like the sameness. Like we go 2 and then half and half. So maybe we even dial this one back so that it gives this almost a whole grid unit now. So now it's the next one is a half, makes more sense. So we're going almost 2 to almost 1 to half. So we have a logical progression as opposed to like 2, half, half, right? Like, how do we go from 2, slow down to a half, and then maintain that same half speed? Like, I would expect it, if it starts to slow down from 2 to a half, it should be almost totally stopped after that next one. So we want to be consistent in how we're decelerating and accelerating things like that, okay? And it gets a bit hard, like I say, when there's so few frames to work with. You know, we only have 16, 15 frames here. So that's why you have to be very, very deliberate about your spacing and your choices in that way. So that is your demonstration of a run cycle. The things I would do to maybe tweak it and make it better, I'd have a keyframe on probably every frame, go through and finesse exactly the spacing that I want to have on the big mile markers of the body, like the knees, the ankles, the feet, the hips, the head, the hands, and the elbows, clavicles. You know, go through everything and make sure we have the overlap that we want through the body. But that is your demonstration for a run cycle. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. And if you choose to do that this week, I hope this helped you, aid you in that effort. So I look forward to seeing your work, and thanks for watching.
I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and let me know how it went. Also tag me if you were able to animate with this tutorial so that I can see your results and maybe share it myself. Again, if you had some frustrations following along, it could be because you are missing out on the knowledge that comes from the other lessons that lead up to the demonstration that I'm sharing here from the Animator's Journey course. So check out animatorsjourney.com if you want my help and the deep dive in the lessons that precede this demonstration so that you have the foundational knowledge you need to really take a demonstration like this to heart and absorb that on your own animation journey. So thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you in class or wherever your animation journey takes you.